I have to say, I'm really not a fan of this kick Disney's been on for a while now of remaking their classic animated films in live action. It feels like there have been more misses than hits, and to me it just screams that this company is running the well dry on new ideas these days. But I do at least understand the temptation to do it. There's built-in brand awareness, and there is a lot of novelty in seeing something you loved as an animation in live action even if it doesn't end up translating that well. In my opinion though, there's much less novelty in this more recent trend of taking classic animated villains and reimagining them in live action as misunderstood anti-heroes or whatever, and oh, they really weren't that bad, and this is the story of how they really had a heart of gold the whole time. Spare me, okay? Sit down, Maleficent. Are there really so few original ideas left that these people are taking classic animated characters who are classic precisely because they were so evil and twisting them into something completely contrary to what made them memorable in the first place just to sell tickets? This entire practice to me just feels really cheap and lame and depressingly unoriginal. And now in the case of Cruella, not only are they doing this, but they're also asking us to root for a character who will one day try to murder 101 dogs to make a fur coat, because being misunderstood is totally going to excuse that. This movie has three big things going for it. The first two are Emma Stone and Emma Thompson, both of whom are terrific as they usually are. Emma Stone has so much charm and charisma that, at least before the plot descended into complete farce, I actually did feel somewhat sympathetic toward Cruella at times, even if the dog-killing thing was always in the back of my mind yelling at me not to. And Emma Thompson is just great in general. Now, her character, and large portions of the movie, quite frankly, are taking a weirdly large number of cues from The Devil Wears Prada of all things instead of 101 Dalmatians, but she takes what they give her, and she acts the hell out of it. The movie definitely has problems, but not when it comes to the two leads. And the third thing is the costumes. And costumes aren't something I usually pay that much attention to, but even I have to admit, they're pretty impressive. They're stylish, they're very memorable, and minus one in particular that felt like an inexplicable callback to the Hunger Games, there's a lot of creativity on display there. I expect the movie will get an Oscar nomination for the costumes, if nothing else. Now, before we can get into how the movie fails, we have to ask the biggest question in all of this. How on earth do you take a character as one-dimensional and stereotypically evil as Cruella de Vil and make her the protagonist that people will want to get on board with, even knowing what she's going to do after the events of this movie? And I guess the answer is you make the movie really over the top so things aren't taken that seriously, you make any connections it has to 101 Dalmatians as tenuous as you can, you load up on crazy plot twists, and just hope the audience doesn't call bullshit before the credits roll. And points for effort, filmmakers. For about 2/3 of the movie, that almost worked. For decent chunks of this thing, I was along for the ride. Yeah, it felt a little too much like The Devil Wears Prada on ecstasy, and most of its attempts to be a precursor to the animated film are among the stupidest things in the movie by a country mile, but when it was just trying to be its own thing, I was enjoying it, mainly because it was pretty focused on its best assets, Emma Stone, Emma Thompson, and all the crazy costumes. And for the first 90 minutes or so, it didn't seem all that interested in being a prequel story to something else, but as an original story about an aspiring fashion designer who may or may not have some form of schizophrenia and who wants to destroy her evil boss through wackier and wackier means, it was diverting enough that I was entertained. But then there's the rest of it. And that's where it falls apart. Because whether the filmmakers like it or not, and I'm pretty sure they didn't like it very much, Cruella is basically a prequel to 101 Dalmatians, so they're kind of required to set the stage for that movie, and I don't think they had the slightest idea how to do that, which is why those parts are so incredibly stupid. There are so many mental gymnastics the movie goes through to explain how Cruella, while she does actually like dogs, because we need the audience to like her now, she has a really horrible relationship with Dalmatians. So horrible, it's downright funny. You've probably seen the clip already. It's spreading across the internet like the common cold. But the incident that establishes Cruella's issue with Dalmatians is so f***ing ridiculous, I laughed out loud when it happened. And I'm pretty sure I wasn't supposed to. I mean, my god, people are gonna be memeing that shit for years. And then there are these other moments that are so bluntly on the nose to the point where they literally just have Cruella or someone else reference some Dalmatians and say, "Cruella killed my dogs," or "those dogs would make a great coat," and then immediately take it back like they were just kidding. They do this at least 2 or 3 times, and it only gets more eye-roll worthy as the movie goes on. So I think the filmmakers weren't interested in setting up 101 Dalmatians so much as they were in telling an original story starring Cruella de Vil, but they had to include the setup, so it's there, and it's pretty dumb. And there's a part of me that's wondering if that was intentional. I'm not sure they even wanted the audience to take it seriously, because once Cruella finishes her transformation, then she's not really the hero anymore, and this whole anti-hero experiment is over. So I guess they figured that if they had to turn her into the villain, they were gonna make her reasons for going down that dark road as ludicrous as possible. And that leads me to the other big issue with the movie. It's too goddamn long. This thing could have clocked in at a breezy 90 minutes and been mostly fine, but they stretched it out to 2 hours and 14 minutes. And the weird thing is, around the hour and 45-minute marker thereabouts, they hit the perfect moment to end the movie on. She's gone through her arc, she's become Cruella, it felt like there was some finality to it. I even expected the credits to roll at that point, but then the movie just keeps going. And going. And going. This is when I started getting really impatient with everything. And considering the hard left turn the movie takes into WTF territory after this, I'm pretty sure what happened is the filmmakers were convinced they were going to get a sequel, but late in the process they changed their minds and just tacked the sequel onto the end of this film. So after the perfect moment to end on passes, Cruella becomes a completely different movie, and it just gets crazier, more cartoonish, more batshit, and there's this absolutely bonkers plot twist that, I mean, good God, if you thought they were straining credibility before, just wait. And it all just feels so unnecessary, because with 1 or 2 little tweaks, you could have easily cut out all this stuff and wound up with a much tighter film. But no, everything's gotta be a franchise these days, so if they couldn't do their sequel in a second movie, they were gonna do it here, even if they ended up hurting this movie in the process. Overall, I think this is a movie that's really enamored with its title character, but resents where that character came from, and the filmmakers very much wanted to plug Cruella de Vil into this new story they came up with so they could make the character what they wanted her to be rather than what the source material says she is, but they were hamstrung by the fact that, number one, they weren't sure if they'd get a sequel or not, which is the cause of some absolutely absurd plot twists that accomplished nothing but dragging this thing out a good half hour longer than it should have been, and number two, 101 Dalmatians is coming up in the timeline, so the movie kind of also had to be about that, which I feel like the producers accepted only begrudgingly, because most of the setup for that is either laughably stupid or just half-baked enough to make you wonder if they even thought about what they were doing here. Case in point, at the end of the movie, it's strongly implied that Pongo and Perdy came from the same litter, making them brother and sister, which means their puppies were the product of inbreeding. Yeah, bet you'll never look at 101 Dalmatians the same way now, huh? Thanks, Cruella. Look, I don't want to completely shit on this movie. Emma Stone and Emma Thompson are legitimately great, and they carry it about as well as anyone could. Put Emma Stone in a better Cruella de Vil movie, and I'd watch that happily. I appreciated the stylishness of it, and the plot does have a fair amount of energy, at least until the last half hour when it suddenly changes, but any goodwill I felt because of that stuff had a tough time overcoming the creative missteps here. There are parts of this movie that look like they're really trying. There are even parts that kind of work. But if you're looking for a project that makes this trend of reimagining classic animated villains in live action as tragically misunderstood characters that you want to get behind and root for something worthwhile, you should probably keep looking. Thanks for watching, everyone. And while you're here, let me know what you thought of Cruella down below. Ding that bell icon for notifications. Follow me on social media so you'll always know when I upload new stuff. And check out my new live streaming channel where all my live streams will be uploaded from now on, Links are in the description. And last but not least, don't forget to thumbs up the video, share, subscribe, and make sure you're still subscribed, because what really deserves to be brutally killed so its skin can be turned into a coat is the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now, but I'll be back with more soon. So you guys take care, do all the YouTube things, and I'll see you next time.